and Vice President Kamala Harris were at the White House for the signing. Also, members of the George Floyd family, also members of families who've been victims of gun violence as well. So they were at the White House also. Okay, so we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. You got that up and running. And our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. All right, so I posted the live broadcast of the press conference today. President Joe Biden signed an executive order on police reform. And this deals with the 100,000 federal law enforcement officers based upon the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The majority of control over policing is at the federal and is at the local and state level, not the federal level. But this is a big start. So we're going to talk some about the executive order, let you hear some of what happened today at the press conference. Then also I posted an article from Sports Illustrated on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, dealing with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick has secured a workout with the Los Angeles Raiders. So this is good news. We shared that on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. It was shared over 4,000 times. Oh, I'm sorry, I got over 4,000 likes, I should say. I don't know how many shares. Got over 4,000 likes. So a lot of people have been commenting on this. So Colin Kaepernick hasn't played in the NFL since 2016. He's scheduled to work out for the Los Angeles Raiders, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. And NFL Network's Ian Rappaport confirmed the report also. So we're going to let you hear a little bit of what's taking place there. Hopefully, Colin Kaepernick will get picked up by the Los Angeles Raiders. Okay. We know that the previous owner of the Los Angeles Raiders was very progressive and hired Art Shell to be head coach, African-American head coach. So if Colin Kaepernick gets hired by the NFL, I'll start watching the games again. Because I haven't watched the NFL game since Kaepernick left the league. If Colin Kaepernick gets picked up by the Los Angeles Raiders or any other team, I'll start watching some. I don't know if I'm going to watch the Lions, but I'll start watching some of the games again, especially the ones Kaepernick is in. I'll watch those, definitely. So we'll talk some about this as well. And then also today, May 25th, is African Liberation Day. So we'll talk some about the history of African Liberation Day in 1963, the formation of the Organization of African Unity. We'll discuss that as well. You see, I have my African Liberation Day t-shirt on. So I was torn between wearing my Colin Kaepernick t-shirt or my African Liberation Day t-shirt today for today's show, because we're talking about Colin Kaepernick and African Liberation Day. So I said, let me wear my African Liberation Day t-shirt because I haven't worn this in a while. And I wore my Colin Kaepernick t-shirt in the last week or so. And African Liberation Day only comes around once a year. So I said, let me wear my African Liberation Day t-shirt. So we'll talk a little bit about the history of African Liberation Day. And I'll give you some more information about the event coming up in Detroit, the African Liberation Day event coming up in Detroit, Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, Friday, May 27th, and over at Kibalan Village, Saturday, May 28th. I'll be at Kibalan Village Saturday, May 28th, because I'll be speaking there, okay, for African Liberation Day. And then we're going to talk also about President Joe Biden signing the executive order today on the second anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. And then there was one other story I was trying to squeeze in. So we'll see. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get that other story in. I'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, so watch me there as well. And programming note, this Thursday show is going to be my last day doing this show daily. We're going to go back to just me doing the show on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays, right here on 910 a.m. Superstation WFDF. You can still follow me on social media, the African History Network on Facebook. I rebroadcast my shows throughout the days there, and we'll do special broadcasts here and there also. And then on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. Now, the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, what you allow other people to do to you, get away with, is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. All right, calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. I want to go here and look at this article here from, we'll look at this one here from Sports Illustrated. And I had my rundown sheet saved in Microsoft Word and it disappeared. So I got to recreate this whole thing, the whole rundown sheet for tonight's show. I got to recreate that. I'm going to send you the clips here in just a minute, Shakita. I had the work done right before I started broadcasting and it disappeared on me. It didn't save in Microsoft Word. We'll talk about this. We're up against a break. We'll talk about this on the other side of the break. Colin Kaepernick has secured a workout with the Los Angeles Raiders. Sports Illustrated and the NFL Network are reporting. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Okay, share this broadcasting and social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by. I don't know why the computer's running slowly. Do we have stand by, everybody? I have to get ready for this next segment. My rundown sheet of the topics and all the information for tonight's show did not save correctly, so I have to recreate this stuff. Where the hell is that clip? I want the ESPN clip. This one right here. Stand by. Back from break in 1 minute. Back for break in 1 minute. Stand by.
So we'll do current events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, that's just our consequences. Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Wow, that's a new spot they cut for me. That's the first time I heard that spot. Who did that one? The radio station. I like that. That's a nice spot. Okay. And then they could update that and say, listen to Michael Imhotep Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. Okay. Do we still use that tagline, the Future Radio? I don't know. I've been on this radio station in 6 years. So I mean, that's what we were using years ago. I don't know. Is the future here now? All right, Shakita, look, I'm going to send you clip number 1 here. This is from Sports Illustrated. Cue that up. We're going to that in just a second here. I like that radio spot, though, that 910 did for me. Keep that one going. Put that in heavy rotation. All right. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. All right. Let's go to this first story here. This is dealing with Colin Kaepernick. I was teeing it up right before the break. Sports Illustrated reported today. We posted this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. People have been commenting on it. Got over 4,000 shares. Colin Kaepernick has secured a workout with the Los Angeles Raiders per report. Now, Colin Kaepernick has not played in the NFL since 2016. He's scheduled to work out for the LA Raiders, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport confirmed the report and added the workout is Wednesday. The workout is Wednesday today. Now, the workout will be at the team facility, and Coach Josh McDaniels, along with General Manager Dave Ziegler, will be in attendance, according to Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer. So this is good news for Colin Kaepernick fans. I get good news for Colin Kaepernick fans. I guess it may be bad news for Trump supporters and Trump fans. And I'd like to hear how the domestic terrorists feel about this. You know, the January 6th domestic terrorists. I like to see how they feel about this. Maybe we can get a domestic terrorist poll. See how they feel about Colin Kaepernick if he comes back to the NFL. Now, Adam Schefter posted on Twitter, Colin Kaepernick. Let's go to, let me show you this tweet. We're going to go to ESPN here just a second to get an update on this also. We'll go to that clip here in just a minute, Shakita. Adam Schefter, ESPN's Adam Schefter tweeted, Colin Kaepernick, who last played football in 2016, the same year he started kneeling during the national anthem to protest racial injustice, is scheduled to work out this week for the Las Vegas Raiders, I should say, not Los Angeles, Las Vegas Raiders. I still have to get used to the Raiders being in Las Vegas. Okay, I remember when they were in Oakland. All right, I stopped following football basically when Kaepernick left the league. So yeah, Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, sorry about that, Las Vegas. But the Las Vegas Raiders, league sources told ESPN. But I remember when it was the Oakland Raiders. Okay, so I mean, I still have football cards, Topps football cards of the Oakland Raiders. I remember Marcus Allen, Oakland Raiders. So Colin Kaepernick last played for the 49ers and was eventually released at the end of the 2016 season. He was never signed by a team in free agency after he made waves in the NFL for kneeling during the national anthem before games to protest police brutality and institutionalized racism in America and white supremacy. And he was protesting this not just for African Americans, but for people of color as well. Now, he believed he was never signed. Kaepernick believed he was never signed by an NFL team because of his peaceful protests and the political attention that his kneeling brought. He filed a grievance with the NFL in 2017, accusing league owners of colluding, to blackball him, and he eventually reached a confidential settlement with the league. Since then, the 34-year-old stayed active politically, and he stated he still wants to play in the NFL. Okay. Now, we talked about a few months ago, he did an interview on a podcast where he said that if he had to come back into the league as a backup quarterback, he would do that as well. This was during an October 2021 interview. And several times since, Kaepernick said he still trains so he can one day lead an NFL team to a Super Bowl. Okay, now during an appearance on the I Am Athlete podcast in April of, actually it was April 2022. On the I Am Athlete podcast, we shared that with you here on this show. Kaepernick stated that he would be open to returning to the NFL as a backup quarterback. This will likely be the scenario in Las Vegas and any NFL team he would join. Now, Derek Carr is the unquestioned starter for the Las Vegas Raiders, and Colin Kaepernick would no doubt serve as a backup if he made the roster. In April 2022, Colin Kaepernick said, "I know I have to find my way back in. So if I have to come in as a backup, that's fine." I want to go to this clip right here. This is from ESPN talking about Kaepernick having a tryout with the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's go to clip one, please, Shakita.
Kaepernick will be getting a workout with an NFL team this week. Adam Schefter, what do we know at this point?
This is going to be the first workout for Colin Kaepernick and an NFL team since he was exiled from the NFL after kneeling to protest racial injustice across the country. Now, he did visit the Seattle Seahawks 5 years ago, but there have been no visits, there have been no workouts, and at some point this week, the Raiders are planning to work out Colin Kaepernick, who's been training in Las Vegas. We'll see how that goes, but obviously, you don't bring in a player like this unless you are understanding the ramifications and everything that comes along with it and what it can do for your offense. He's been looking for a chance just to get back to the National Football League. He knows that he'll have to come in as a backup, but again, this is something that's interesting because the Raiders have always been a progressive organization. We think back to Al Davis, the owner. He was the first owner to hire a black head coach in our show. He was the first NFL owner to hire a female executive, and Amy Trask. He hired Tom Flores, a Latino head coach. He's always been ahead of the curve. And now Mark Davis, the son, the head of the organization right now, obviously is a part of an organization that's planning to work out Colin Kaepernick. You wonder if other teams now will take notice, and maybe that will generate a spark across the National Football League.
You know, Adam, you mentioned that Colin Kaepernick understands he would have to be a backup. Obviously, Derek Carr is there. The quarterback room consists of Nick Mullins and Jarrett Stidham. It's been 1,970 days since we last saw Colin Kaepernick play. That was week 17 of the 2016 season. How realistic do you think it is that the Raiders are bringing him in to potentially actually be a guy that's going to be able to play?
Well, you don't bring in a guy unless you plan to have him on the roster, right? I don't think they're looking at him playing. Derek Carr signed a lucrative new extension. They're looking to come up with as much depth as possible on the roster. And clearly they see him as a guy that they're curious about, that they want to check out. They want to see how he's in shape, how he's throwing. He's 34 years old. We haven't seen him in the National Football League since he was 28, Laura. So it's been a long time. No one knows exactly the shape he's in. Nobody knows exactly how he would handle the offense. So the Raiders are going to bring him in, take a look, see what he's about, and maybe this will lead to other teams bringing him in. Other teams have pondered it. The league has advocated for teams across the league to give him a chance, but nobody has up until this week. At least there's a workout, which is a sign of progress, more progress than we've seen since he visited the Seahawks 5 years ago. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN.
Stop the clip. Thank you. Okay, so that's from ESPN. And we know that back in April, he said that he wouldn't mind if he has to come into the league as a backup quarterback, he would do that also. All right. So we want to see what the results are of this tryout. We want to see what the results are of this tryout, but it's the first one that he's had in years for an actual team. It's the first one he's had in years. Okay. All right. Look, we're coming up on a break. When we come back from the break, I want you to hear what Kaepernick had to say back in April of 2018, back in April of 2022 on the I Am Athlete podcast, where he said if he has to come back into the league as a backup quarterback, he will do that. Good Morning America had a good segment on that we shared with you back in late April 2022. And we know today at the White House was the signing of the executive order dealing with policing on the second anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. Remember, May 25th, 2020, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We'll give you an update on what took place here at the White House. We know the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act was blocked in the Senate because of duplicitous, traitorous Senator Tim Scott working on behalf of Republicans and deceitful Republicans like Senator Lindsey Graham, okay, who met with Attorney Monique Presley, met with members of George Floyd's family, and then stabbed them in the back. We know the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 220 to 212. No Republicans in the House of Representatives voted for the bill. Only people that voted for the bill were Democrats. Okay, but we saw some progress today. This is just the first step. All right, we'll continue this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Balance of nature.
Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Okay, share this broadcasting and social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Share this broadcasting and social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network. $sign the AHN show through Cash App. $sign the AHN show through Cash App. Also through PayPal. PayPal.me/the AHN show. This says let's keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, keep doing the show, even though we're going back to just doing the show once a week. It takes a lot to do all this. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. Did it pass? Somebody asked the question, did it pass? You're talking about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. What are you referring to? Did it pass? Let me know what you're talking about. That's Tanya. Did it pass? Now, also the call-in number is 313-778-7600. Have a quick question or comment. Stand by. I have to get ready for this next segment. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. We need the Beto O'Rourke clip, and we need these two clips right here. Texas gunman warned Uvalde. We need these two clips here. Back from break in 2 minutes. I have to get ready for this next segment. Oh no, you know what? We're going to the God damn it, where is that? We're going to the White House next. That's the next segment. Back from break in 1 minute. Stand by. Joe Biden, White House. Biden. Let's roll with this right here.
910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. All right. Right before the break, we were talking about Colin Kaepernick having a tryout on Wednesday with the Las Vegas Raiders. And if you remember back in April, mid to late April 2022, he was on the I Am Athlete podcast, and he said that if he has to come back into the league as a backup quarterback, he would do that, but he would not stay a backup quarterback for long. I want to go back to this clip here from April 18th, 2022. April 18th, 2022, from the Good Morning America. Good Morning America, where they talked about these moves. They talked about this statement from Colin Kaepernick. Let's go to clip 2, please, Shakita.
Who's speaking out overnight, the quarterback talking with I Am Athlete about how badly he wants to return to the NFL. TJ Holmes is back with more on this. Good morning, TJ.
And Stray, again, remember, he has not thrown a pass in the NFL since January 1st, 2017. We're talking about 5+ years now, so it's fair to say we're not sure where he is and how good he could be on a football field, but we're also not really sure what he's thinking. He doesn't talk much, doesn't give a lot of interviews. Well, he took questions from some fellow athletes, and now we're hearing from him, and he says now he just needs an opportunity to walk through a door. He'll handle the rest from there. In one of his first interviews in years, Colin Kaepernick says he still hopes to once again be an NFL quarterback.
Do you want to play football? Absolutely. I mean, that's without question.
This candid session takes place after the free agent quarterback had a training session with former NFL stars Chad Ochocinco and Brandon Marshall.
What you saw out here, that's 5 years of training behind the scenes to make sure I'm ready and stay ready at the highest level. You don't do that if you don't have a passion and you don't believe you're going to find a way on that field.
Kaepernick acknowledges that at this point he'd sign as a backup.
I know I have to find my way back in. Okay. So, yeah, if I have to come in as a backup, that's fine. But that's not where I'm staying.
Kaepernick did secure one 2017 meeting with the Seahawks, but he's heard nothing in the 5 years since. He's even reached out to each team and participated in numerous public exhibitions. In his pursuit of a comeback, Kaepernick trained with Seattle wide receiver Aaron Fuller, through with current NFL players, even passing for scouts at the University of Michigan.
Let me come in, compete, show you what I can do.
The now 34-year-old is asking franchises and their GMs to see him as a no distractions team player.
The narrative was out there was, oh, you know, it's going to be a media circus. What else comes with him?
Kaepernick helped carry San Francisco to the Super Bowl in 2013, but he's gone from player to activist, kneeling as the national debate over police brutality ignited and paid a price for his protest. Fans burned his number 7 jersey. Kaepernick hasn't thrown a pass in the NFL since the 2016 season, but he's been busy rolling out a Netflix series, Colin in Black and White. He landed a lucrative Nike ad, landed on the USA Today bestseller list as a children's book author, and stayed in shape for the possibility of a contract to come.
You had those dreams from when you're a kid. I mean, like, I'm gonna be an NFL player, and I'm going to win a Super Bowl. And for me, I have unfinished business on that front.
And you can see more of that interview in full episode I'm Athlete on YouTube today at noon Eastern. And guys, remember, it was September 2016 when he took a knee for the first time. Mm-hmm. That was his last season in the NFL, that season that he did that. He's 34 now. We were just talking. He stays in shape. He hasn't played in a while, but you said this guy could still perform properly.
Yeah, if he wants to come in as a backup, I think he definitely could win a spot on a team in the NFL.
You got to get politics.
Okay. No, that's all.
You think it's the politics, not his ability?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no doubt. I think that's
Thank you, TJ. I got it.
All right.
Well, hey
Pause
there,
it right there. Pause it right there. All right. Great reporting by TJ Holmes. Yes, it's the politics. They've had some scrubs in the NFL. White quarterbacks that got hired, many of them scrubs. Kaepernick is much better than them. Yes, it's the politics. That's the reason why Kaepernick has not been picked up by a team. Okay. So great reporting there. That's from April 18th, 2022. We shared that with you last month from Good Morning America. That's on their YouTube channel. Okay. Call numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Now I want to go to this next story here. This is dealing with the what happened today at the White House and the signing of the executive order dealing with policing. Okay. And this is on the second anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. And for some reason, my computer wants to act up and run slowly. It's getting on my last nerves. Hold on. I'm waiting for this thing just froze up on me. Stand by. Okay. So we're going to go to the White House here in just a second. And hope my computer follows me to the White House. And the screen just went black. Hold on just a second. Okay, we're having technical difficulties here, so we'll get this worked out. But President Biden spoke today. He also spoke about Uvalde as well, Uvalde, Texas. Spoke about the tragedy there that took place on Tuesday. We know the updated number is 19 children killed and 2 teachers. 19 children killed and 2 teachers. At the school shooting at Robb Elementary School, President Biden and as well as Vice President Harris were at the White House today for the signing of the executive order. There's also a good fact sheet at whitehouse.gov on the executive order and what it does. We're going to show you that briefly here. We could probably talk about this some more on tomorrow's show. Okay. And Shakita, I'm going to send this to you here. So we want to go to this clip here dealing with the White House. All right, and this is what happened today. Okay, if we look at this article here from, I want to look at the one from NBCnews.com. NBCnews.com had a good article on NBCnews.com had a good article on the executive order. Let's pull this up here. Biden signs police reform executive order on anniversary of anniversary of George Floyd's death. Biden signs police reform executive order on anniversary of George Floyd's death. If we look at this reporting here from NBC News. Now, the order will create a national registry of officers fired for misconduct and encourage state and local police to tighten restrictions on chokeholds and no-knock warrants. Now, based upon the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the majority of control over policing is at the state and local level, not at the federal level, okay? And that is dealing with the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And if we look here at Cornell University's law school's website, they have information dealing with this police powers, okay? Let's look at this quickly because a lot of people don't understand law at all. And they just think that the president has unlimited powers. The president has a lot of powers, but he also has states' rights as well. So if we look at this here, let's flip over to this. This is at Cornell University's law school's website, Cornell Law School, law.cornell.edu, Legal Information Institute, police powers. Police powers, let's zoom in on this so people can understand this. Police powers are the fundamental ability of a government to enact laws to coerce its citizenry for the public good, although the term eludes an exact definition. The term does not directly relate to common connotation of police as officers charged with maintaining public order, but rather to broad government regulatory power. Berman versus Parker, a 1954 U.S. Supreme Court case, stated that public safety, public health, morality, and quiet law and order are some of the most conspicuous examples of the traditional application of the police power, while recognizing that an attempt to define police powers, reach, or trace its outer limits is fruitless. Okay. Now it goes on to say what I was said right before I showed you this, the 10th Amendment. The division of police power in the United States is delineated or outlined in the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which states that the powers, quote, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited, let's zoom in on this some more for people who have bad eyes. Let me back up here. Okay. Which states that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, end quote. That is, in the United States, the federal government does not hold a general police power, but may only act where the Constitution enumerates a power. Therefore, the majority of control over policing is at the state and local levels, which is why voting at the state and local level is so important. But there is a role that the federal government can play. We saw part of that role today. I'm going to continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Bathroom break in 2 minutes. Bathroom break in 1 minute. Stand by. Where the hell is it's the African Liberation Day stuff? Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. All right, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Okay, I want to go back to this story here dealing with the executive order signed at the White House today. If we go back to this article here from NBC News, we're going to that clip here in just a minute, Shakita. Biden signs police reform executive order on anniversary of George Floyd's death. Okay, so Wednesday, May 25th, President Joe Biden signed an executive order aimed at reforming police practices on the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd. The order creates a national registry of officers fired for misconduct and encourages state and local state and local police to tighten restrictions on chokeholds and so-called no-knock warrants. It also restricts the transfer of military equipment to law enforcement agencies and mandates all federal agents wear activated body cameras. So this applies to the approximately 100,000 federal agents. Okay, approximately 100,000 federal agents, approximately 800,000 law enforcement officers in the country, about 100,000 federal agents. Now, Biden had been pushing Congress to pass more comprehensive police reform legislation, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But after the legislation failed to garner bipartisan support, the White House began and the reason why you needed bipartisan support in the Senate is because you need 60 votes in the Senate, which means you need 10 Republicans to vote for the bill. Now, the bill had already passed the House of Representatives. The bill passed the House of Representatives March 3rd, 2021 by 220 to 212. No Republicans voted for the bill in the House of Representatives. No Republicans voted for the bill. So when Republicans come to you in the 2022 midterm elections talking about why you should vote for them, then all you have to do is just go to congress.gov and look up these bills that you say you care about. George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which passed the House of Representatives August 2021 by a vote of 219 to 211. No Republicans voted for the bill. We talked about the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act last week. The bill passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 222 to 203. Only one Republican in the House voted for the bill, Representative Adam Kinzinger out of Illinois. And he's only one of two Republicans on the January 6th committee. He's not running for re-election. 203 Republicans voted against the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, which came up for a vote as largely as a result of the Buffalo, New York shooting where 10 African Americans were killed. And no Republicans voted for this. Okay, when you look at the bill, the vote that took place last week when it came to trying to alleviate the baby formula shortage here in the U.S. In the House of Representatives, 192 Republicans voted no on the bill. They don't even care about white babies. They're not pro-life, they're pro-birth, because after you're born, they don't care about you. When it came to vote for voting rights, they voted no. When it came to vote for George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, they voted no. When it came to vote to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level, the MORE Act, M-O-R-E, the MORE Act, look that up. Only 3 Republicans in the House of Representatives voted for the bill. Over 200 voted no. Not only will it decriminalize marijuana at the federal level, it will also expunge federal marijuana convictions from your record dating back to 1971, which will help a lot of African Americans who have federal convictions. Now, we know a lot of convictions at the state level, but this is what they can do at the federal level. But even then, only 3 Republicans voted for him. One of them, I think, is high half the time. That's Sugar Daddy Matt Gaetz out of Florida. So because see, I love for Republicans to come to me with this nonsense because I got something for them. Okay. I know what they've done. But go to congress.gov. You can look up all these bills. More importantly, you can see who voted for the bills and who voted against the bills. So if you're a member of the House of Representatives overwhelmingly keeps voting for bills that you advocate for, why the hell would you let them get voted out of office? Because most likely the person that's going to replace them is going to vote against your own interests. If you're 1 or 2 members of the U.S. Senate overwhelmingly keep voting for bills that you advocate for, why the hell would you let them get voted out of office? Because most likely the person that's going to replace them is going to vote against these bills, especially if they're a Republican. Because all you have to do is go look, and Republicans keep voting against the bills. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act. No Republicans in the Senate voted for the bill out of 50, including the 16 Republicans who are sitting there right now, like Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Chuck Grassley and Senator Mitch McConnell, who in 2006 voted to reauthorize the Voting Rights Act. All 50 Republicans voted no on the bill. Even Manchin and Sinema voted yes on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, as well as the Freedom to Vote Act, because that was Manchin's bill, the Freedom to Vote Act. No Republicans voted on either one of those bills. Now, Manchin and Sinema did not vote to change the filibuster, but neither did the 50 Republicans. We have to be more strategic. This is about policies and how you vote, not necessarily where you have a D or R next to your name. This is about policies you advocate for and how you vote, because how you vote shows me what you value. How you vote shows me what you value. You go to congress.gov, that's one of the most powerful websites because we can see what you value. Okay. And if you keep voting against our own interests, it's time for us to vote you out of office, period. It's time for us to fire you. Now, if we go to, let's see, we go back to this article here from NBC News, what happened at the White House. But after the legislation failed to garner bipartisan support, because you need 60 votes in the Senate, the White House began crafting its own action last year. Biden called again on Congress today to take action before signing the order. He said, I know progress can be slow and frustrating, and there's a concern that the reckoning on race inspired 2 years ago is beginning to fade. All right. Here's a picture of him signing the executive order. All right. He said, today we're showing that speaking out matters, being engaged matters, and that the work of our time healing the soul of this nation is ongoing and unfinished and requires all of us never to give up, always to keep the faith. Now, you have a lot of people who unfortunately don't understand politics. And they think that all you have to do is vote in one election and then you get everything that you want. Okay. The real world doesn't work like that. What do you mean, Michael Imhotep? Well, let's look at this. The Emmett Till anti-lynching bill just passed, I think it was March of this year, the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. It took 122 years to get a federal anti-lynching bill passed from 1900, when Representative George Henry White, who was the only African-American left in Congress because the state legislatures in the southern states changed the state constitutions and voted the African-Americans out of Congress. It took 122 years from 1900, when he was the only African-American left in Congress, and he introduced an anti-lynching bill. You had 1917, when you had the silent march, and 10,000 African Americans marching down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, demanding a federal anti-lynching bill. Over 200 times, Congress has tried to pass an anti-lynching bill, and it happened for the first time this year under this administration. It took 75 years from the 1890 Mississippi State Convention, where they rewrote the state constitution to impose poll taxes and literacy tests. It took 75 years from then to get a 1965 Voting Rights Act. And the reason why you needed a 1965 Voting Rights Act is because of what happened in Mississippi in 1890. All right, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're out of time here. Right now, correct wrong behaviors. Not over till we win. We're kind of forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Okay, so we have to understand history. Okay, 1890, Mississippi State Convention. Solomon Saladin Calhoun, who was the white county judge who presided over the Mississippi State Convention, said, we came here to exclude the Negro. We came here to exclude the Negro. Because of what happened in Mississippi, this was copied by South Carolina in 1895. This was copied by Alabama in 1901 and Louisiana in 1898. These former Confederate states start rewriting their state constitutions, and they use what Mississippi did as the model. And they impose poll taxes and literacy tests. Then Louisiana imposes the grandfather clause. So if your grandfather prior to 1867 could not vote, then that means you can't vote, because most likely he was a slave. And these were all ways to get around the 15th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution of 1870. You had Alabama, 1901, to rewrote their state constitution. But this starts with Florida in 1889. Florida was the first state to impose poll taxes. So it took 75 years from the Mississippi State Convention of 1890 to a Voting Rights Act in 1965. This is after the U.S. Supreme Court case of Williams versus Mississippi, 1898, where it was challenging the poll taxes and literacy tests that Mississippi imposed in 1898. And the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the poll taxes and literacy tests are not unconstitutional and do not violate the 15th Amendment. This is after Smith versus Allwright, 1944, U.S. Supreme Court case where the lead attorney was Thurgood Marshall. And this was challenging the all-white primaries in Texas. And Thurgood Marshall won that case. Okay. The reason why you needed, this is Hiram Rose Revels. He was the first, he was the first African-American U.S. Senator. He's from Mississippi, 1870. Now, this is at a time when the state legislature appointed U.S. senators, because for the first 124 years that the U.S. Senate existed, people didn't vote for U.S. senators. It wasn't until about 1914 that voters actually started voting for U.S. senators. Prior to that, U.S. senators were appointed to the U.S. Senate by members of the state legislature. Because originally they wanted, the founding fathers wanted U.S. senators insulated politics, because it's the Senate that holds impeachment trials to remove a president from office. It's the Senate that confirms Supreme Court justices and federal judges. So they wanted U.S. senators to be insulated from politics, as opposed to the House of Representatives, where they have to run every 2 years. They wanted to be insulated from that. So it took, if you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, December 5th, 1955, it took 9 years from the Montgomery bus boycott to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, July 1964. It took 10 years from the Montgomery bus boycott to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, because the Montgomery bus boycott really launches the modern day civil rights movement, even though the part of the spark was the killing of Emmett Till, August 28th, 1955, which really galvanized civil rights activists. Okay. Everybody from Dr. T.R.M. Howard to Medgar Evers to Rosa Parks. So if you think you can just vote in one election, and then, I mean, if you think you can just protest for a few months during the summer and then vote in one election and then get everything you want and overturn white supremacy and racism, it means you haven't studied history. This is a sustained fight. And you have to vote people out of office who keep voting against your interests. You remove the obstructionists. You vote people back into office who keep voting for your interests. And you have to understand the concept of protecting gains that were made. This is understanding a concept that I call political self-defense. You have to it's not only about what someone can do for you. It's also understanding how to block and stop what people are trying to do to you. This is why you have to look and see how people vote, because how you vote shows me what you value. This is why I say Republicans are not pro-life, they're pro-birth. Because when it's time to vote for health care, when it came time to vote for the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which had billions of dollars for schools, so schools can pay for better ventilation systems so they can open up, so schools can have smaller classrooms and pay for teachers and paraprofessionals and things like this, every Republican in the House of Representatives and U.S. Senate voted against the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. Even though many of the Republicans were saying, open the schools back up, open the schools back up. When it came time to vote to fund opening the schools back up, you voted no. Only 19 Republicans in the Senate voted for the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. It's going to help all 50 states. It's going to help Republicans in these states. It's going to remove lead pipes in communities like Flint, Michigan, and communities that have high lead levels. In many African-American communities, it's going to remove lead pipes. It's going to provide cleaner drinking water. It's going to provide high-speed internet, especially to rural areas, and 25% of African-Americans live in rural America. Only 19 Republicans out of 50 voted for the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, and it was a bipartisan bill. Only about 14 Republicans out of over 200 voted for it in the House. It's going to create thousands of jobs as well. And then dumbasses like Marjorie Taylor Greene attacked some of the Republicans in the House that voted for the bill that's going to help their constituents. So how you vote shows me what you value. The bill is also going to help reconnect a lot of African-American communities that were disrupted because of the expressways running through them. So when we look at this bill right here, even though it doesn't give us everything that we want, this is a big step. But we have to follow through with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act in the Senate. If we can't get the bill in 2022, then after the 2022 midterm elections, you come back in the 118th Congress, because we have to increase the number of Democrats in the Senate, because you need to get if you get 55 instead of 50 in the Senate, then what happens is you can change the filibuster rules. You can do a carve out to the filibuster. Even if Manchin and Sinema vote against it, you got 53 Democrats to vote to do a carve out to the filibuster for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. You nullify Manchin and Sinema's vote, because they're not up for re-election to 2024. In 2024, you can vote them out of office. I don't know if Sinema's going to run again in 2024. Manchin may. He'll be 75, something like that, 75, 76. So he may or may not run again. But that's how you nullify their vote. So you have to, but first and foremost, you have to look and see, because see, at the end of the day, you can only vote for your 2 U.S. senators in your state. I live in Michigan. I can't vote for Manchin and Sinema. I don't live in West Virginia. Okay. I don't live in Texas. I can't vote Senator Ted Cruz out of office. He's not even up for re-election in 2022. Okay. So I look and see how my 2 U.S. senators vote. Okay. Debbie Stabenow and Gary Peters. All right. My member of the House of Representatives, Brenda Lawrence, who I know, she's retiring. So the 14th Congressional District is up for grabs. All right. If she was running again, I know her voting record. So I will vote for her again, because she votes for bills that I advocate for. Not only that, I'm on her email list. So I get an email from her and she talks about bills she's voted for, money she's brought to the 14th Congressional District. So you go to house.gov, you can look up your member of the House of Representatives. You can get on their email list. So you can, because they send out emails. They have money to send out emails to let you know what they're doing, the bills they voted for, the type of money they brought to your districts, things like this. This is very important, because how you vote shows me what you value. And if they keep voting against our own interests, why the hell would we let them stay in office and we're paying their salary and they're doing us harm? That doesn't make sense. So we have to understand how to actually follow through after the election and enforce the policies that we want to be passed and written into law. We have to understand that process. Okay, so go to congress.gov, because people don't understand politics. Many of our people don't understand politics at all. I hear some of the dumbest ass nonsense, and I can tell they don't read anything. Just repeat just nonsense they hear on social media. And they're not telling people to go to congress.gov. Also, congress.gov, you can read the bills. This is why, you know, when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered last Friday, and we talked about the the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which mistakenly gets called an anti-Asian bill. It's not specific to Asians. Go read the bill at congress.gov. You can read the bill. That applies to African Americans. People talking about it don't read. Congress.gov, one of the most powerful websites. Okay, so let's go to this clip here. I can play this now in off 9:10, so I got to run the boards here. This is what happened at the White House today.
Thank you all. Vice President Harris, before we begin, let me say a few words about what happened in Uvalde, Texas, elementary school. Since I spoke last night, the confirmed death toll has tragically climbed, including another teacher and three more students. Jill and I will be traveling to Texas in the coming days to meet with families and let them know we have just a sense of their pain, and hopefully bring some little comfort to the community in shock, in grief, and in trauma. As a nation, I think we all must be there for them, everyone. And we must ask, when in God's name will we do what needs to be done to, if not completely stop, fundamentally change the amount of the carnage that goes on in this country? To state the obvious, and Corey and a lot of other people here, I'm sick and tired. I'm just sick and tired of what's going on and continues to go on. I spent my career as chairman of the Judiciary Committee and as vice president working for common sense gun reforms. As I said, as a senator and vice president. While they clearly will not prevent every tragedy, we know certain ones will have significant impact and have no negative impact on the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is not absolute. When it was passed, you couldn't own a cannon. You couldn't own certain kinds of weapons. It's just always been limitations. But guess what? These actions we've taken before, they saved lives. They can do it again. The idea that an 18-year-old can walk into a store and buy weapons of war designed and marketed to kill is, I think, just wrong. It just violates common sense. Even the manufacturer, the inventor of that weapon, thought that as well. You know, where's the backbone? Where's the courage to stand up to a very powerful lobby? But here's one modest step. The federal agency that measures and ensures that gun laws are enforced and the Second Amendment is abided by. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosives, AFT, has not had a Senate confirmation leader for 7 years because of these disputes. For 7 years, been out without anyone in charge. I nominated a supremely qualified former prosecutor who has broad bipartisan support from law enforcement and the community overall. His hearing was held earlier today, I should say. The Senate should confirm and without delay, without excuse, send the nomination to my desk. It's time for action. We're here today for the same purpose, to come together and say enough, to act. We must. Vice President Harris and members of the cabinet, members of the Congress, civil rights leaders, law enforcement officers and officials, distinguished guests, especially the families missing a piece of their soul, including the family sitting in front of me and a beautiful young girl who told me my daddy's going to change history. And he will, honey. He will. They've lost a piece of their soul 2 years ago as well. You know, I know events remembering your loved ones, even though they're met with great reverence, are really hard. Everything's come back as if it was happening yesterday. But in your own ways, you've each of you, whose family's been victimized, have summoned the courage to find purpose through your pain, to stir justice that's been too long dormant, and to give hope while in need of hope yourself. That's why the executive order I'll be signing today is so important in my view. It's a measure of what we can do together to heal the very soul of this nation, to address profound fear, trauma, exhaustion, particularly Black Americans have experienced for generations, and to channel that private pain and public outrage into a rare mark of progress for years to come. 2 summers ago, in the middle of the pandemic, we saw protests across the nation, the likes of which you hadn't seen since the 1960s. They unified people of every race and generation. Athletes and sports leagues boycotted, postponed games. Companies and workers proclaimed Black Lives Matter. Students staged solidarity walkouts. From Europe to the Middle East to Asia to Australia, people saw their own fight for justice and equality, what we were trying to do. The message is clear. Enough. Just enough. Look, almost a year later. Almost a year later, a jury in Minnesota stepped up and they found a police officer guilty of murdering George Floyd, with officers and even a police chief taking the stand to testify against misconduct of their colleagues. I don't know any good cop who likes a bad cop. But for many people, including many families here, such accountability is all too rare. That's why I promised as president, I would do everything in my power to enact meaningful police reform that is real and lasting. That's why I call on Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The Senate's in my desk. So I'm asked why I haven't done this executive order earlier. If I'd done it, I was worried it would undercut the effort to get the law passed. This is a call to action based on a basic truth. Public trust, as any cop will tell you, is the foundation of public safety. They're not trusted, the population doesn't contribute, doesn't cooperate. Two sides of the same coin, inextricably linked. And the principles of fairness and equal justice are at the core of each of them. For the wheels of justice are propelled by the confidence that people have in their system of justice. Without that confidence, crimes will go unreported. Witness fears fear to come forward. Cases go unsolved. Victims suffer in isolation while perpetrators remain free. And ironically, police are put in greater danger. Justice goes undelivered. Without public trust, law enforcement can't do its job of serving and protecting all of our communities. But as we've seen all too often, public trust is frayed and broken. And that undermines public safety. The families here today and across the country have had to ask why this nation why so many black Americans wake up knowing they could lose their life. And of course, just living their life today. Simply jogging, shopping, sleeping at home. Whether they made headlines or not, lost souls gone too soon. Members of Congress, including many here today, like Senator Cory Booker and Congressman Karen Bass, alongside members of the Congressional Black Caucus, House and Senate Judiciary Committees, spent countless hours on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to find a better answer to that question. I sincerely thank you all for your tireless efforts, but they're not over. The House passed a strong bill. It failed in the Senate, where our Republican colleagues opposed any meaningful reform. So we got to work on this executive order, which is grounded in key elements of the Justice and Policing Act and reflects inputs of a broad coalition represented here today. Families courageously shared their perspectives on what happened to their loved ones and what we could do to make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. Civil rights groups and their leaders of every generation have given their heart and soul to this work, provided critical insights and perspectives. The executive order also benefits from the valuable benefits of law enforcement, who put their lives on line every single day to serve. Now let me say, there are those who seek to drive a wedge between law enforcement and the people they serve. Those who peddle the fiction of public trust and public safety are in opposition to one another. We know that's not true, but it occurs. I believe the vast majority of Americans want the same thing: trust, safety, and accountability. The vast majority of law enforcement risk their lives every day to do the right thing. Their families wait for that phone call every time they put on that shield. Just yesterday in Uvalde, brave local officers and Border Patrol agents intervened to save as many children as they could. Here today, I want to especially thank the International Association of Chiefs of Police, Fraternal Order of Police, as well as the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the Federal Law Enforcement Association, the Police Executive Research Forum, Major Chiefs Association, and others who stepped up and endorsed what we're talking about today. As divided as this nation can feel, today we're showing the strength of our unity. It matters. This executive order is going to deliver the most significant police reform in decades. It applies directly under law to only 100,000 federal law enforcement officers, all the federal law enforcement officers. And though federal incentives and best practices are attached to, we expect the order to have significant impact on state and local law enforcement agencies as well. Here are the key parts. First, the executive order promotes accountability. It creates a new national law enforcement accountability database to track records of misconduct so that an officer can't hide misconduct. It strengthens the pattern and practice investigation to address systematic misconduct in some departments. It mandates all federal agents wear and activate body cameras while on patrol. Second, the executive order raises standards, bans chokeholds, restricts no-knock warrants, tightens use of force policies to emphasize de-escalation and duty to intervene to stop another officer from using executive force, just as occurred. It didn't occur, but people testified it didn't occur in George Floyd's case. And third, the executive order modernizes policing. It calls for a fresh approach to recruit, train, promote, and retrain law enforcement that tied to advancing public safety and public trust. Right now, we don't systematically collect data, for instance, on instances of police use of force. This executive order is going to improve that data collection. There's a lot more as well. The bottom line of the executive order includes reforms that have long been talked about or finally implemented at a federal level. And it comes at a critical time. By building trust, we can strengthen public safety, and we can more effectively fight crime in our communities. We can do one more thing. We can show what's possible when we work together. Look, I know progress can be slow and frustrating. And there's a concern that the reckoning on race inspired 2 years ago is beginning to fade. But acting today, we're showing that our dear friend, late John Lewis, Congressman, wrote in his final words after his final march for justice in July of 2020. He said, democracy is not a state. It is an act. Democracy is not a state. It's an act, an affirmative act. And today we're acting. We're showing that speaking out matters, being engaged matters, and that the work of our time, healing the soul of this nation, is ongoing and unfinished and requires all of us never to give up, always to keep the faith. I close with this. Over 2 years now, for over 2 years, we've gotten to know one another and pray with one another, not figuratively, literally. I promise the Floyd family, among others, George's name is not just going to be a hashtag. Daddy's name is going to be known for a long time. That as a nation, we're going to ensure his legacy, and the legacy of so many others remembered today. It's not about their death, but what we do in their memory that matters. The purpose. Just a few moments. I'm going to deliver on that promise when I sign the executive order. And Kamala and I will continue, along with our friends in Congress, to get meaningful police reform legislation to my desk as best we can, as quickly as we can, beyond what we're doing here, affecting states as well, directly. On this day, we're showing the America we know. We're a great nation because the vast majority of us are good people. There's nothing beyond our capacity, nothing. We act together as the United States of America. This is a start, a new start. May God bless you all. May God protect our forces. Now I'm going to go sign that executive order. Thank you.
All right, so that's what happened at the White House today. You can watch that at whitehouse.gov and also on C-SPAN. And okay, let's close this out. That's on whitehouse.gov's YouTube channel. All right, we'll post the link here. And also Vice President Kamala Harris spoke before President Biden spoke. Now, very quickly here, a couple things. One, Biden said that he mentioned the inventor of the AR-15 assault rifle. That was Eugene Stoner. Eugene Stoner was the inventor of the AR-15 assault rifle. He died in, I think it was 2015 when this article came up, 2016. He died in right about 2016, okay? When he died, his family put out a statement. Now, he never owned an AR-15. He never intended for the weapon to be used by civilians. It was for the military, okay? The AR-15's creator died before the weapon became a popular hit, and his family has never spoken out until now. Our father, Eugene Stoner, designed the AR-15 and subsequent M16 as a military weapon to give our soldiers an advantage over the AK-47, the Stoner family told NBC News late Wednesday. He died long before any mass shootings occurred. But we do think he would have been horrified and sickened as anyone, if not more, by these events. Okay, now this is in July 2016. This article came out. The inventor's surviving children and adult grandchildren spoke exclusively to NBC News by phone and email, commenting for the first time on their family's uneasy legacy. They requested individual anonymity in order to speak freely about such a sensitive topic. They also stopped short of policy prescriptions of legal opinions. Now that's in 2016. They may have some policy prescriptions now, but based upon the owner, based upon the inventor of the AR-15, it was never designed for civilians. He designed that for the military, and he never owned the AR-15 either. But their comments add unprecedented context to their father's creation, shedding new light on his intentions and adding firepower to the effort to ban weapons like the AR-15. Okay, so read the rest of this. This is from, I read this article and talked about this on my show when this came out. When this article came out in June 2016, okay? So a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't know who invented the AR-15, things like this and that. He never intended it to be in the hands of civilians, as well as let alone 18-year-olds. 18-year-old civilians, no. Or 18-year-old, 45, 60-year-olds, no. I was looking earlier today, in preparation for the show. I was looking for some updated information, and I'm trying to see, I saw something earlier today. Let me see something here. Okay, so that one, because I saw some pictures of Eugene Stoner, because I heard his name mentioned today. So I want to look here and see if there are any quick updates. Oh yeah, this right here. Okay, this is Hello Magazine, because the comments from the family are coming back up. America's War, Eugene Stoner, according. Okay, so for instance, if we look at this article here from the New York Times, nonfiction. Okay, there's one article here from the New York Times. This is looks like a review of a book, Uncertain Ground: Citizenship in the Age of Endless Invisible War. This book is nonfiction. Okay, this one right here, New York Times, America's wars are fought by relatively few people. That's a problem for Phil Clay. Here, okay, May 17th, 2022, Uncertain Ground: Citizenship in the Age of Endless Invisible War. And mentions Eugene Stoner. Okay. America's most widely owned. Okay, for instance, A History of Violence, written by Las Vegas. A history of violence written after the Las Vegas gun massacre of 2017 explains how what is now America's most widely owned rifle, the AR-15, arose from the military's quest for a lightweight weapon that could do maximum damage through high volume area fire, rather than relying on carefully aimed sniper shots. Okay, this is how the AR-15 came to be. He also recounts the grisly sequence of experiments in wound ballistics that guided the choice of ammunition for the AR-15 and its military descendant, the M16. According to his family, the AR-15's designer, Eugene Stoner, never imagined this weapon in civilian hands. Never imagined this weapon in civilian hands. With a slightly modified AR-15, the Las Vegas gunman was able to kill 58 people and wound at least 400 more. Okay, so you can read this. Now, there was also one from Hello Magazine that I saw earlier today also. Let me see this here. There's one from Hello Magazine. Texas school shooting. What does it say? Let me see this here. Hold on. What is this? Okay. Tony Dokopil shares emotional message from family of AR-15 inventor. He would be horrified and sickened. This is from HelloMagazine.com, May 25th, 2022. Look at this one here. This is quoting the family of Eugene Stoner, who invented the AR-15 assault. Tony Dokopil, Dokoupil, shares emotional message from family of AR-15 inventor. Quote, he would be sickened. He would be horrified and sickened. He would be horrified and sickened. Tony Dokopil has traveled to Texas to cover the tragic murder of 19 elementary children and shared an emotional message with viewers. During his broadcast, he recalled a conversation. He had 6 years ago with the children and grandchildren of the inventor of the AR-15, Eugene Stoner, who told Tony at the time that Eugene Stoner invented the machine, the AR-15, solely as a military grade weapon, and that he would be horrified and sickened by the attacks. Tony's co-host Gayle King, who remains in the studio, could be heard loudly agreeing with the comment. So you can read this also. That's at HelloMagazine.com. That clip is probably at CBS This Morning also, because Gayle King is on CBS This Morning. All right. And then, let's see here. This one here. Read this article here about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed in the House of Representatives. We've talked about this article numerous times. Somebody posted that Biden could have signed the George Floyd Act into law. No, he could not, because the bill did not pass the U.S. Senate. A president can't sign a bill into law until the bill passes both chambers of the legislative branch of the federal government. I'm a bill on Capitol Hill, Schoolhouse Rock. It's on YouTube. House passes Police Reform Act named for George Floyd. The bill passed 220 to 212. This is NBCnews.com, March 3rd, 2021. Read this article. The bill passed H.R. 1280, which is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. You can read the bill at congress.gov. The bill passed 220 to 212. Although a Republican representative said he voted yes by mistake and changed the official record to reflect his opposition, which means no Republicans voted for the bill. That was Representative Lance Gooden of Texas. Okay, he put out a tweet that he pressed the wrong button and voted for the bill by accident. He said he's going to change his vote. Representative Lance Gooden, Republican of Texas. The bill stalled in the Senate because it was blocked by lying Senator Ted Cruz, backed by some of the lying Republicans like Senator Lindsey Graham. So, as we talked about on yesterday's show, our Tuesday show, the May 24th edition of the African History Network show, I showed you, we revisited this article that we've talked about a number of times here on the show because we deal with facts and evidence here. Proper documentation ends all conversation. TheHill.com, September 28th, 2021, when the talks broke down between Senator Tim Scott, negotiating for Republicans, and Senator Cory Booker and Representative Karen Bass, negotiating for Democrats. Senator Tim Scott said the talks broke down because Democrats wanted to defund the police. He lied. This article right here and others show that he lied, that Senator Tim Scott lied. Police organizations say failed reform proposal would have strengthened departments, not defunded them. Police organizations say failed reform proposal would have strengthened departments, not defunded them. Okay, now, today after signing of the executive order, the representatives from the International Association of Police Chiefs, representatives from the Fraternal Order Police, representatives from other police organizations were there at the signing. Who wasn't there was Senator Tim Scott. Who wasn't there was Senator Lindsey Graham. Okay, now this is what happened. This is how these two police organizations who supported the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act busted Senator Tim Scott. Two police associations released a statement expressing disappointment over police reform negotiations ending on Capitol Hill last week after a bipartisan group of lawmakers said it had reached an impasse. The International Association of Chiefs of Police, IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, and the FOP, the Fraternal Order Police, are disappointed that Senate negotiators could not reach agreement on police reform legislation. And we thank all those members of Congress who partnered with us in this effort. The joint statement from the IACP and FOP said, these two police organizations supported the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. They said the bill did not defund the police. The bill actually funds the police, which is why I don't understand how to defund the police people. And defund the police is one of the dumbest ass slogans I've ever heard in my life. And I have a background in marketing. I've heard some ridiculous slogans. That's one of the dumbest ones, defund the police. I don't understand how to defund the police. People say they want the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, but the bill funds the police. And it spends millions more on policing. That's not me saying that. That's what Senator Cory Booker said. But it spends the money responsibly, and it takes a holistic approach to policing. This is why it's important to read the bills. This joint statement from the Fraternal Order Police and the International Association of Police Chiefs said despite some media reports, at no point did any legislative draft propose defunding the police. Despite some media reports, at no point did any legislative draft propose defunding the police, the statement added. What they're doing is calling Senator Tim Scott a liar because they were there involved in the negotiations and they supported the bill. So Senator Tim Scott, Senator Lindsey Graham, all these Republicans, Senator Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell told Tim Scott, okay, agree to what's in the bill and we'll line up 10 Republicans to vote for it. Senator Tim Scott would have gone along with it. Senator Tim Scott was negotiating not for himself, he's negotiating on behalf of Republicans. So what Senator Tim Scott did, the Republican leadership agreed with, including Mitch McConnell, including Senator Lindsey Graham, who's the senior senator from South Carolina. It is our joint belief that the provisions under discussion would have strengthened the law enforcement profession and helped improve the state of community police engagement, community police engagement without compromising management and officers' rights. This is the Fraternal Order Police and the International Association of Police Chiefs who supported the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. They're saying the bill would have strengthened the law enforcement profession and helped improve the state of community police engagement without compromising management and officers' rights. Does that sound like defunding the police? Authorities and legal protections without compromising management and officers' rights, authorities and legal protections. On Sunday, Senator Tim Scott, this is late September 2021, Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, who's phenotypically African-American, who was negotiating reform with Senator Cory Booker and Representative Karen Bass, claimed that the bill advocated defunding the police. He lied. And these two police organizations called Senator Tim Scott out on his lies. Now, Senator Tim Scott is up for re-election November 2022. He needs to be voted out of office. Quote, "We said simply this: I'm not going to participate in reducing funding for the police after we saw major city after major city defund the police." Major city after major city did not defund the police. Major city after major city did not defund the police. Scott said on CBS Face the Nation on Sunday, he went there and lied once again. Meanwhile, Senator Cory Booker said the reform, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, would have allocated millions of dollars more to police. This is Senator Cory Booker. He helped write the bill. Does that sound millions? It would have allocated millions of dollars more to police. M-O-R-E, more, in addition to. Does that sound like defunding the police, or does that sound like funding the police? The bill would have funded the police, which is also what President Joe Biden talked about when he talks about we don't need to defund the police, we need to fund the police. People didn't listen to what he said after that. He talked about community policing. He talked about police accountability. This is why you can't operate based upon sound bites. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act would have funded the police, but it does it in a responsible way and takes a holistic approach to policing. Senator Cory Booker said, we want to help officers with mental health issues. We want to collect more data. So we should give more resources. Booker said on CNN's State of the Union on Sunday, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act does not defund the police, it funds the police. People don't read. But it does it in a responsible way. It makes it safer for everybody. Okay, so read the rest of this bill. Read the rest of this article here. Police organizations say failed reform proposal would have strengthened departments, not defunded them. That's thehill.com. Then you look at this piece here, NBCnews.com. We talked about this back in January 2022 because we actually deal with real substance here on this show. Biden plans executive action on police reform to revive stalled issue. The president plans to sign the executive action as early as this month. 3 people familiar with the plan said. Now, this was January 13th, 2022. Okay. He's going to do executive action because they couldn't get the bill passed in the Senate because it's blocked by Republicans. The executive actions would follow Biden's uphill battle to advance voting rights legislation, and they could coincide with a similar effort by some Democratic lawmakers to revive the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which stalled on Capitol Hill after attempts to craft a bipartisan measure failed. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. This is January 2022, January 13th, 2022. Said Biden planned to do an executive order. Now, the president doesn't sit there and write an executive order. The president has a team to write executive orders. Now, I haven't written an executive order for a president, but I've been on the committee to write an executive order for the city of Detroit. It took us 13 months to do it because it went through a number of revisions. We had to coordinate with different different departments in the city of Detroit, as well as organizations outside the city of Detroit. If we look at, which one did I want? If we look at, which one? Okay, plans, executive action on police. Oh, I want this one here. Where's my article from I want the one from the Washington Post. I want to show you the article here from the Washington Post we talked about before. This deals with why Biden's executive order on policing is still up in the air. Now, this is from April 7th, 2022. So when I hear people say, well, what's taking so long for the executive order, things like this, I just Googled Biden's executive orders on policing, and this came up. That's how I found out what happened, what was going on. Let me see why Biden's. This is from the Washington Post. Executive order on policing is still up in the air. And this breaks it down. Let's see. I want. Where the hell is Washington Post? Hold on. Let me pull this up from Washington. On policing. Okay, this one right here. All right. This is the article right here I'm looking for. All right, hold on, I'll be right back. All right, so this article right here, this is from April 7th, 2022. Why Biden's executive order on policing is still up in the air. A spike in violent crime and the nation's divided politics have complicated White House efforts at police reform. Okay, so the Biden White House is struggling to reshape an executive order on police accountability, 3 months after a leaked draft drew sharp opposition from law enforcement groups. This is what delayed the executive order, because they were working on the executive order. An 18-page draft memo of the executive order leaked in January 2022, which delayed the executive order from being signed into law. This is what happened. Struggling to reshape an executive order on police accountability 3 months after a leaked draft drew sharp opposition from law enforcement groups. So the draft leaked in, this was January, so it leaked probably about November 2022, something like that. Putting the initiative at risk at a time when violent crime is rising and civil rights groups have expressed frustration over the pace to reform. Police organizations said they remain in talks with Biden's domestic policy advisor, Susan Rice, and other senior aides. But nearly 2 years after the police killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others sparked nationwide protests and demands for change, the White House has offered no timeline for the release of the order or details of what it might include. So this, keep in mind, is April 7th, 2022. The following month, about 6 weeks later, the executive order gets signed into law. The parties have reached general agreement on some key issues, including creating national standards for the accreditation of police departments and the decertification registry of officers who commit violations, said Jim Pascoe, executive director of the Fraternal Order of Police. Those changes are aimed at boosting accountability by ensuring basic policing standards across the country and limiting the ability of bad officers to get jobs elsewhere, That's what the database is for, the national database. But the most contentious questions remain unsolved, such as whether the White House would call for stricter use of force standards or changes to qualified legal immunity for officers, which protects them from being sued as individuals over alleged misconduct. Now, president cannot, through an executive order, strike down qualified immunity. Law enforcement officials have opposed efforts to make federal grant funding for local police departments contingent on those departments adopting specified reforms, Pascoe said. Now, the White House and police groups acknowledge that the president cannot change qualified immunity through executive power, but calling publicly for changes could help mobilize public support and pressure on lawmakers. Okay, the relatively slow moving process, more than 6 months after President Biden promised to pursue executive action, comes as the White House seeks to signal support for police amid a 2-year surge in gun violence and homicides, but also to reassure critics of policing that Biden wants to improve training and root out misconduct. Okay, so read the rest of this here. This is from April 7th, 2022, because I told you an executive order was coming. This is Washington Post, why Biden's executive order on policing is still up in the air. Okay, so then it gets signed into law today. So they get signed into law today, and we can look at the, I had the fact sheet up right here. This is at whitehouse.gov. This breaks down what's in the executive order. This fact sheet here. President Biden to sign executive order to advance effective, accountable policing and strengthen public safety, May 25th, 2022. You can read the introduction. Then it breaks down what the bill does. Promotes accountability, creates a new national database of police misconduct. The executive order orders the Attorney General to establish a national law enforcement accountability database in which all federal law enforcement officers, federal LEAs, law enforcement agencies, federal law enforcement agencies must participate, etc. Read the rest of that. 2, strengthens pattern or practice investigations. The executive order requires steps to improve the investigation and prosecution of criminal civil rights violations, including directing the issuance of best practices for independent investigations and improving coordination to address systemic misconduct through pattern or practice cases. 3, ensures timely and thorough investigations and consistent discipline. 4, mandates the adoption of body-worn camera policies. Mandates the adoption of body-worn camera policies. The executive order orders all federal law enforcement agencies to adopt a publicly post body-worn camera policies that mandate activation of cameras during activities like arrests, etc. Raises standards. Okay, 1, bans the use of chokeholds and carotid artery restraints unless deadly force is authorized, and restricts the use of no-knock entries. Okay, the executive order, the EO orders all federal law enforcement agencies to adopt policies that ban chokeholds and carotid restraints, etc. Read the rest of that. This is under raising standards. 2, requires new standards that limit use of force and require de-escalation for all federal agencies. 3, and expands upon the Obama-Biden administration's restrictions on the transfer of military equipment. This is something President Obama did, but Donald Trump reversed. This is something President Obama did because of the protests coming out of Ferguson, Missouri. But Donald Trump reversed this. The executive order imposes sensible restrictions on the transfer or purchase with federal funds or equipment that belongs on a battlefield, not on our streets. The list of prohibited equipment is broader than under the Obama-Biden administration, and the executive order's mandate is broader than the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, in that it pertains to all relevant programs, not only the Defense Department's 1033 program. So this goes even beyond what was in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Next, you have supports law enforcement with improved systems and training. Supports law enforcement with improved systems and training. Requires an updated approach to recruitment, hiring, promotion, and retention of law enforcement officers. Now, we need to be applying for these jobs. And because of the $10 billion from the American Rescue Plan that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for, and we talked about this as well, because of the $10 billion in the American Rescue Plan that's allocated for public safety, okay, and is going to police, fire departments, EMS, all of that. We talked about this last week on the show. And because you have a lot of cities who their police departments are understaffed, they're going to have to hire more officers. We need to be applying for those jobs so we can become the type of police officers we say we want to see. Those who de-escalate, those who respect people, treat people like human beings, things like that. Where the hell are they going to come from? If we don't become the police, where are they going to come from? We need to apply for those jobs and get those jobs and go into the departments and be the type of officers that we want to be, because that's less white supremacists who get those jobs. There's not a shortage of white supremacists who want to apply to the police department. Requires an updated approach to recruitment, hiring, promotion, and retention of law enforcement officers. And I had the fact sheet up. Let me see. Whitehouse.gov. There was another one that dealt with advances equity. Okay, that's from October 2021. There was the one that dealt with this one right here. When Biden said, "You spend this money now." We talked about this here on the show, and I talked about it on Roland Martin Unfiltered when I was on a couple of Fridays ago. Read this fact sheet here, because this goes through, it's very detailed. This should have gotten more coverage. President Biden issues call for state and local leaders to dedicate more American Rescue Plan funding to make our communities safer and deploy these dollars quickly. Okay. People said, "Oh, this is funding the police." No, this deals with a holistic approach to policing, and it implements a lot of things that were in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And Biden said he was going to the mayors and implementing this at the local level since they could not get the bill passed in the Senate. $10 billion already planned for American Rescue Plan investments in public safety and violence prevention. See, people don't talk about the violence prevention. People didn't talk about the money going to job training, things like this. $10 billion in already planned American Rescue Plan investments in public safety and violence prevention, as President Biden calls for increased investments. $6.5 billion in state and local fiscal recovery fund investments over the past year by over 300 communities in more than half of states, including $1 billion in bonus for frontline public safety workers to help recruit and retain these public servants, because a lot of cities, they lost public servants. Some died of COVID, some retired, some got other jobs, things like this. We need to apply and get these jobs. It's not just police, fire department, EMS, frontline public service. Over $2 billion to prevent crime and ease the burden on police. People didn't talk about this. People said, "Oh, this is more fun to police." No, your dumbass needs to read. Over $2 billion to prevent crime and ease the burden on police, including community violence interventions, crisis responders, and substance use disorder and mental health services. This, you go through and read this, this is taking a holistic approach to policing, using, and there was $360 billion in the American Rescue Plan that goes to public safety and things like this, and with the local governments, etc. Keep in mind, no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for this bill. Over $350 million in job training. This is crucial. Over $350 million in job training. This is going directly to the cities and other assistance to help formerly incarcerated individuals. Hello. You know anybody that used to be in prison, formerly incarcerated, and is trying to re-enter society? This is designed to successfully help them re-enter society and provide at-risk teens and young adults with meaningful job opportunities in the summer and during the year. Because Biden said use this money now to get ahead of a spike in crime that we're going to see this summer. Job training and job placement for those re-entering society, those returning citizens. Job training and placement for at-risk teens and young teenagers, things like this, to keep them out of trouble. That's what's in this funding here that Biden announced, and people just said, "Oh, it's more funding the police." No, you didn't read. So we should be lining our teenagers up to get these jobs and talking to our city council and mayors and things like this to find out how to get them enrolled in the programs. $450 million in public safety technology and equipment like new police cars, upgraded radio systems, body-worn cameras, and gunshot detection systems. So you don't have police cars breaking down when they go to, when you call and you need somebody to come and help you, you got carjacked, you don't want the police car breaking down. A lot of these cars are old with some of these departments, or there's a shortage of them because they get crashed, the crashes, etc. $600 million to help clear court backlogs and support victims of crime. Is supporting victims of crime important? $600 million to help clear court backlogs and support victims of crime. Over $1 billion in proposed American Rescue Plan investments in public safety have been documented this budget season. This understates the potential for new American Rescue Plan commitments to public safety. Indeed, for cities and counties, the numbers announced today reflect only the investments reported through 2021. So there's more coming because we're, in May 2022. This just reflects through 2021. $1.2 billion Medicaid mobile crisis intervention services. Police departments are too often overburdened due to lack of crisis response support for people experiencing behavioral health crisis, like mental health. That's why the American Rescue Plan included $1.2 billion to fund mobile crisis intervention units staffed with mental health professionals and trained peers so that they can respond, as opposed to a police officer just responding and they deal with somebody with a mental health issue and they're not trained on how to deal with people with a mental health issue and they end up killing them. That's in the American Rescue Plan that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for. This is taking a holistic approach to policing. $1 billion Family Violence Prevention and Services Program to reduce domestic violence. Do you think reducing domestic violence is a good thing? Then why did no Republicans in the House or the Senate vote for this? Do you think reducing domestic violence is a good thing? Then why did no Republicans in the House or the Senate vote for this bill? $1 billion Family Violence Prevention and Services Program to reduce domestic violence with immediate crisis intervention, health supports, and safety. Then they go through and break down numerous examples of how the different cities are utilizing this money. They talk about Houston. Now, none of these cities are perfect, but this money is making a difference. They give an example of Detroit. Here in Detroit, with now Mayor Mike Duggan, who I did not vote for any of the 3 times that he ran, Mayor Mike Duggan and our police chief, James White, were there at the White House, and they had a meeting before they did they had a meeting at the White House before they did the press conference, and the different mayors, city officials, police chiefs, and things like this, they were talking about how they were using these funds and the impact it had on their cities. Okay. Now, I ain't a fan of Mike Duggan. I ain't vote for him any 3 times that he ran. Okay. But we have seen violent crimes here in Detroit decrease May 3rd, 2022 over May 3rd, 2021. They released the figures May 3rd, and our violent crimes are criminal homicides are down 20%. I'll pull up this piece right here from WXYZ.com. They have the information here. Okay. And they talked about how they're using the funds from the American Rescue Plan to fight crime, make the streets safer, things like this. No, Detroit's not perfect. Yes, we still have a lot of problems, but we have seen our violent crime decrease year over year. They gave the example here of Houston, Texas. Okay. No, Houston, Texas is not perfect, but they have seen some positive movement. If we look at this here, Houston's One Safe Houston plan, reducing crime in first 100 days. Mayor Sylvester Turner, Police Chief Troy Fenner will describe the $52 million American Rescue Plan to reduce violence, with $32 million in mental health and domestic violence response, $32 million in mental health and domestic violence response and victim service efforts, $11 million in police overtime, and additional 125 officers per day in areas of the most violent crime, $3 million for a new community violence intervention and prevention program, $1 million for a gun buyback initiative, $1.5 million for forensic science backlog assistance, because you're dealing with a backlog of cases, okay, that need to be solved, $2 million for additional park rangers for park safety, and $1 million for community reentry program. That deals with returning citizens, people coming back home from prison, and the services that they need, the job placement, all different types of things like this. because I used to work with returning citizens. So I have some idea of what type of services need. Then they break down Kansas City, Missouri, making fiscal room to hire up to 150 new officers. We need to apply and get those jobs to be the type of officers we say we want to see. Mayor Quentin Lucas and Police Chief Joe Mabin will discuss leveraging American Rescue Plan funds to avoid public safety cuts, and layoffs, and invest $10 million for new police radios, communication across departments, and how they're working toward providing hazard pay to officers. The American Rescue Plan was directly responsible for enabling the fiscal space for Kansas City to be able to hire up to 150 police officers, increase pay for officers and civilian staff, and budget $12.4 million for the Violent Crime Division and $6.6 for the Communications Unit, and increase pay for 911 call takers. That's the dispatch, 911 dispatch as well. Okay. Increase pay for 911 call takers. We need to apply for all these jobs that they're doing hiring for in these various cities that we live in. Tampa, Florida, avoiding cuts in public safety and investing in new police vehicles and major modernization of fire rescue. So the different cities are applying the money based upon the needs of the city. Different cities have different needs. You can't just take a cookie cutter approach to all the cities. Detroit, Michigan, increasing police patrols and expanding mental health response and community violence programs. Mayor Mike Duggan, who I did not vote for any of the 3 times, okay, that he ran. Detroit Police Chief James White, they were both at the White House for the meeting and the press conference when this took place. They began using American Rescue Plan funds for public safety starting in July 2021 and are continuing to expand public safety initiatives with 6 primary strategies. Now, Detroit is not perfect. Yes, we have a lot of problems. Yes, we still have problems with crime, but our crime statistics in the major categories are going down year over year. 6 primary strategies totaling over $110 million. Investments include for an updated police training facility, okay, $30 million. Let's see, a total $110 million. Okay, investments include funds for an updated police training facility, $30 million for enhanced police patrols, $11 million for expanded mental health co-response. What that means is that you have a mental health professional that goes out with the officer on certain calls when it's suspected that you're dealing with somebody that has mental health issues, as opposed to just sending the officer by themselves and they don't have training on how to deal with the different types of mental health issues and they end up killing somebody or beating somebody. You send a mental health professional along with them. $11 million. This is in the city of Detroit. $11 million for expanded mental health co-response. $12 million for community outreach gun violence prevention programs. $7 million for gunshot detection technology. $5 million for body cameras and $8 million for firehouse expansion. Okay, dealing with the firehouses, the part of the fire department. Okay, they break down city after city. Tulsa, which is not perfect, but it looks like they're doing some good things with the money. Mayor G.T. Bynum, Republican, mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma, needs to be voted out of office. But if they can use these funds to make things safer in Tulsa, that's important. He still needs to be voted out of office because he's against reparations for the 3 survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, even though his family owned collectively 931 slaves from about the 1650s up to 1860. Okay. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Yes, they still have problems, but they're using the American Rescue Plan funds to make things safer. They talk about Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Talk about Toledo, Ohio. They go through and show specific examples, city after city, how these funds are being used. Now you'll have Republicans who take credit for the crime going down in these cities and things like this, but they ain't vote for the bill that allocated the money. Mercer County, Pennsylvania, nearly $12 million for county-wide radio system and improved 911 system. Then they talk about Milwaukee, Wisconsin, bolstering expanded violence intervention, summer youth employment. Summer youth employment is huge. Okay, now you're going to have Republican governors who talk about how, oh, we got the numbers down and we got the youth jobs. Now that money came from the federal government, and no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the American Rescue Plan. Game recognizes game. Okay, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, they break down appendix 40 additional examples of cities, counties, and states are using American Rescue Plan funding. Go read this here. Okay, this is at whitehouse.gov. Fact sheet: President Biden issues call for state and local leaders to dedicate more American Rescue Plan funding to make our communities safer and deploy the dollars quickly. Because he said, get ahead of the summer arriving, the kids are out of school, crime going up. He said, use these funds now. And they gave numerous examples of how the different states are using this money from the American Rescue Plan that no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for. Even Mitch McConnell had to admit that $4 billion a few months ago, after it passed in American Rescue Plan passed in March 2021. A few months after it passed, Mitch McConnell was in Kentucky, and he said $4 billion was coming to Kentucky and it's going to help Kentuckians. Then he had to admit he didn't vote for the bill. He was talking about the good that the bill is going to do for Kentucky, but then he had to admit he didn't vote for the bill. At least he did. At least he admitted he didn't vote for it, because you had some other Republicans who were lying and said they voted for the bill and they did not. Read this article here from WXYZ.com. This is when the press conference took place at the White House, talking about the additional funds for the American Rescue Plan. Mike Duggan and our police chief James White were there. Detroit Chief James White, Mayor Mike Duggan meet with President Biden at White House. And then it broke down the crime statistics and the drop in the statistics. So far, the statistics back them up. As of May 3rd, Detroit homicides, sexual assaults, and aggravated assaults are all trending down compared to 2021. Only carjacking saw an increase. It went from 60 carjackings as of May 3rd, 2021 to 72 carjackings in 2022. It was up 8%. Okay, so that ain't a huge explosion. We don't want any carjackings. Okay, but we are seeing progress. Okay, so read this. You can read this also here, WXYZ.com, Channel 7 here in Detroit. Okay, so we've got that one and all those. Okay, lastly, today's African Liberation Day, May 25th. And there's a good article here from face-to-faceafrica.com. Celebrate Africa Day with 10 powerful quotes by great African leaders on African unity. So check this one out. Some people call it African Liberation Day. Others call it Africa Day. Celebrate Africa Day with 10 powerful quotes by great African leaders on African unity. May 25th, 2022 by Mildred Europa Taylor for at face-to-faceafrica.com. Here's Kwame Nkrumah. Africans all over the world are today celebrating Africa Day. The day was first observed in 1963 in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, when 32 African countries formed the Organization of African Unity. Okay, 32 African countries formed the Organization of African Unity, the OAU. Since then, 21 more countries have joined the Organization of Africa Unity, or Organization of African Unity. South Africa was the last to join in 1994 after the end of apartheid. The original mission of the OAU was to help ensure freedom in African countries that were still under colonial rule in the 1960s, uphold their human rights, and defend their sovereignty. The OAU would in 2022 become the African Union, which to date supports political and economic integration among its 54 member nations. Okay. Africa Day, which is widely commemorated on May 25th, is a national holiday in some countries. This year's celebration comes amid challenges, including not only COVID-19, but also food insecurity and increasing malnutrition. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. They have quotes, let's see, from African leaders. If we do not approach the problems in Africa with a common front and a common purpose, we shall be haggling and wrangling among ourselves until we are colonized again and become the tools of a far greater colonialism than we suffered hitherto. It's Kwame Nkrumah, former president of Ghana. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. All right, so I'm wearing one of my African Liberation Day T-shirts. I'll be speaking at African Liberation Day at here in Detroit at the Al Kibalan Village. I'll be speaking at that Al Kibalan Village on Saturday, and we know African Liberation Day is taking place Friday, May 27th at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and also Saturday, May 28th at Al Kibalan Village, which is at 7701 Harper Avenue in Detroit. And I'll be there. I'm speaking about 1:50 p.m. They have me scheduled to speak, dealing with the African involvement in the origins of Russia. You can go to alddetroit.org for more information. This is a free event, alddetroit.org for more information. We had Greg McKenzie on from the African Liberation Day Committee here in Detroit. We had him on our show Sunday. Fridays at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. This year's famous political education keynote speaker will be Malikia Kinney of D-Town Harvest Farms and Black Food Security Network. Okay, be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturday is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, where they didn't teach you in school. As soon as you register, you can watch the class we did the past couple of weeks. We have the class, we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. We have the information on our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then we have a bundle pack also. You can register for all three classes that I teach. We have a bundle pack. You get all three for $120. That's a $285 value, okay? Even after the class is over with, you still have full access to the course, so you can go back and watch it anytime. Okay, so a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class. Then we have the bundle pack here. If you've taken any of my online classes in the past, email me at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You get a 50% discount. All right. Okay, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, the African History Network focuses on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And you can also support us through Cash App and PayPal, $ the AHN Show, through Cash App and through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show. So we have the information at our website also, and in the thread of this broadcast as well. Okay. All right.